Psalter reading is from Psalm 24. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. For he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the rivers. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? And who shall stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift up his soul to what is false and does not swear deceitfully. He will receive the blessing from the Lord and vindication from the God of his salvation. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek the face of the God of Jacob. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts, he is the King of glory. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God. I love the service each year so much, as I know many of you do. It always reminds me, and I often mention it, of a moment in Barbara Kingsolver's wonderful novel, Animal Dreams. She tells about the town of Grace. And in the town of Grace, every year they observe the Day of the Dead. People pack up picnic baskets and they come to the cemetery and they take flowers and strew them over the graves and pile up little stones, and they dance and they sing and they eat and they tell stories. Kingsolver writes, "It was a great comfort to see all of this attention lavished upon the dead. In the town of Grace, you never stop being loved." And I think this service says that in this church, my friends, you never stop being loved. I passed a birthday recently. I offered one little whining comment to somebody who responded, as people often do, by saying, "It beats the alternative. It beats the alternative." And then it wasn't 5 or 10 minutes later, I was in another conversation and somebody mentioned somebody who died and they said, "He's in a better place." So does this beat the alternative, or is it a better place? I remember hearing a wise person years ago say, "Heaven must be astonishingly amazing if it puts this place in the shade." Like, this place is pretty cool. People aren't trying to get out of here. You know, the reason we try to figure out how to stay here is that it's so amazing. The psalm begins that way. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. There's so much beauty. There's so much wonder. And those who dwell therein, I mean, the people, just look at the faces of others, the beauty, the wonder, the complexity, the dreams, the loves, the passions. It's all amazing. Even those who are ready to go to the better place, right? The really elderly or the very infirm or those who are so miserable they can't see carrying on. Even they understand the beauty that can and should and has been in this place. Somebody who's gone on to that better place, I've talked to you often about Professor Roland Murphy, my lifelong mentor at Duke. He had this great ability of bringing the Psalms to life. I always just thought a psalm was a psalm. It's just something that you read. But he helped it come to life. In Psalm 24, I just remember being gaga the day he lectured on this. He said Psalm 24 was a liturgy. It was a worship service that they used when the Israelites would come on great pilgrimage festivals to the city of Jerusalem. And they would gather at the foot of Mount Zion, and they would process up the hill into the temple. They would sing that hymn, "The earth is the Lord's." And then they would actually speak to the gates of the temple. "Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in." What does that mean? They were carrying the Ark of the Covenant, leading the procession into the temple. And the Israelites knew God was everywhere, but they thought God was especially in that Ark of the Covenant. Absolutely fabulous. Psalms coming to life. In the psalm, the question is, who can ascend the hill of the Lord? And the answer is, he who has clean hands and a pure heart. I thought about having a check this morning, standing outside the door and saying, before you enter, let me ask you, do you have clean hands and a pure heart? The attendance would diminish greatly. There would be 3 or 4 who'd say, absolutely, and they're the people who most certainly shouldn't come in, but they're everywhere. It's aspirational, right? It makes you blush, but then it's what you hope for. It's what we live for. We trust in God one day to cleanse our hands and to purify our hearts. We anticipate that just by the act of forgiveness and mercy and worship. One day it will be reality. Those in heaven with God have clean hands and pure hearts. In the meantime, we try to purify our hearts as best we're able. It's really hard during the election season, but I've been talking to you for months now about to be attentive to your heart. Be wary of whatever feeds your darkness. Be wary of whatever feeds your fear. Be wary of whatever feeds your resentment. Be wary of whatever makes you think, hey, this is what I want for me versus what God might want for those who are poor, vulnerable, elsewhere. I've told you before about Dietrich Bonhoeffer saying, the life of faith isn't keeping your hands clean. The life of faith is getting your hands dirty for God. Interesting way to think about it. Mother Teresa said, if you want to lead the life of holiness, it's a good idea at the end of the day to look at your hands and talk to them and say, hey, little hands, where have you been today? What did you do today? Whom did you touch? What did you hold? What did you grab onto? Frederick Buechner famously said that many of us live our lives like a clenched fist. The clenched fist can work and it can fight and it can intimidate, it can hang on to things, but the one thing the clenched fist cannot do is accept a helping hand. The clean hands accept the helping hand from God. The clean hands ask God, what would you have me to do with my hands? And this affects who do you touch and what do you do? And what do you do? I thought about this the other day with your credit card or whatever. I was reminded this week of if you ask a Quaker, are you a Christian? The way they answer this question is, you'll have to ask my neighbor. You're a Christian, you'll have to ask my neighbor. I have a different version of that. Are you a Christian? You'll need to ask my accountant. You'll need to ask my accountant. Do we have clean hands? Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? The Israelites were literally walking up a hill. But for us, it becomes a metaphor of the spiritual life. The gravity of life can just pull you down into the mud and the mire. But the spiritual life is about ascending, not to be superior or above anything else, but to have the perspective of God, not to be caught down in the weeds, but to be of one mind and heart of God. Jesus said, blessed are the pure in heart, what? They shall see God. We get glimpses now and then. Those who are with God forever see God face to face. The Ark of the Covenant is interesting. All of the nations and their religions back then, they did these same processionals up a hill into their temples, but they all carried idols. They had golden bulls. They had bronze dragons. Israel had no golden bull or bronze dragons. Israel just is the Ark of, it's just a box, and it's a mostly empty box. The only thing that's in the box are the 10 Commandments from Moses, just words. We are a religion that banks on words. We trade in words, and it's so hard because we live in a society where words are just cheap. Words are just chatter. You can't trust them. I don't know about you. If one more commercial comes on telling me about some candidate or how terrible the other is, it's just so many words. You just wish, could you just please hush? We're so tired of the words. We're so tired of the words. In this place, we broker in words, and words are about truth, and words are about trust. You actually know this despite the way we've made words so cheap. When somebody looks you in the eye and says, I love you. When someone says, will you marry me? When someone says, a parent says, I am so proud of you. There are other words. It might be the doctor saying, I'm so sorry, it's malignant. We need to call hospice. the words that define us. In this place, we have the words of life. Out there, there's so much chatter hammering at you all the time, but in this place, we can say to you, in God's eyes, you are beloved. You belong. You have hope. You have a future with God. It's a new story. That hill, when Father Murphy described it to me, I envisioned in my mind what it was like climbing that hill in Mount Zion. I eventually got to go to Israel for the first time, and I've had the good luck to be able to go back many times. And I've walked up that very hill. It's long, it's steep. And I love climbing that hill because it's not just, hey, let's get up there and get a photo. I imagine myself walking in step with those pilgrims over the centuries who have made their way up that hill. I knew the first times I went that the actual road from Bible times was underneath those pavements. They have now excavated it. And if you go to Jerusalem, you can actually walk all the way up that hill on those original pavements. It just makes my feet tingle and my heart soar. I'm walking there, I'm thinking, God, Solomon, David walked here, Jeremiah, Mary and Joseph, Jesus, his disciples, the Apostle Paul, and a great many pilgrims since then. They all ascended the hill of the Lord. They are all now with God. They see God face to face. You know, this is the day when we name those in our church family that we've lost over the past year. What I really wish we could do is linger over each name. I could read a name, tell me a story, show me a photo, tell me a memory, tell me a laugh, tell me. It'd be great to be able to do that. And it's not just names of those in our church who've died in the past year. There are people who've died in our church in previous years, maybe many years ago. You still carry them in your heart. Maybe it's other people whose names were read in other places. You carry them in your heart. Last year, I had to stand here and read the name of my father-in-law, Tom Stockton. It was hard. And yet it's a beautiful thing. You have to name those who are gone. You have to tell the stories. You treasure those who remember, those who know. Every year, the hard names, there are any number of them here. I think about this splendid service that we have. We'll name the name of Jimmy Jones. He and I dreamed this service in its current form together. It's a beautiful thing. Then years ago, I read the name of Walter Ball, who'd been the music guy here for 35 years. Died a few years back. These great people make us who we are, leave us as this legacy. Here's the thing, though, that matters. People say things like, oh, we'll never forget John. Oh, we'll always remember Mary. And this is false. John and Mary will be remembered for a time, but give it 2 or 3 generations, and no one will remember John or Mary or me or you. And that's why it's important that we come here and hear God's words. What God's words tell us is they may well be forgotten here, but they are never forgotten by God. Those we have loved and lost are with God. They see God face to face. They dwell in the eternal light and joy of the presence of God. Part of what that means for us now is that you carry someone in your heart today, someone's, I would imagine. Those people are right now with God, the same God who is in your heart with you as you love, grieve, remember. And that, my friends, is the miracle of God's grace. God somehow mystically pulls off what we could never do. God pulls off this reuniting of those that we have loved and lost. In God's heart, in God's hands, we are in this moment, and actually every moment we are one. The love is there. It is full. It is joyful. So we're the people who live on that perhaps greatest of all words, hope. Hope. Hope in God. Hope in God. My friends, who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? Who shall ascend God's holy place? Thanks be to God.